Sometimes when painting black objects, creatures, or fabrics on a miniature, I have a tendency to take a very simple, almost automatic approach to highlighting these black elements. This usually involves using a simple grayscale to highlight the miniature. However, it is possible to step outside our comfort zone and explore the use of other colors when highlighting black. So that's what I plan to do today. I'm going to experiment with using purples and pinks to highlight an almost entirely black monster miniature. Welcome to Trehane Miniatures. When searching through images to inspire me for these alternate color highlights for black, real-life photos were hard to come by. The search mostly provided me with examples of selective coloring, where an entire photograph is desaturated to black and white and one color is selectively placed in the photo to draw the viewer's attention to one particular area. I also got a lot of images showing highlighted black hair and a few images of objects with extreme object source lighting. This is because vibrant colored highlights on black objects isn't really how the color black works in the world around us, with one notable exception being the existence of pearlescent paints that are specifically designed to operate in this manner. While something like purple highlights on black cloth isn't the way the color black operates in the real world, there is no shortage of inspiration to be found in the art world for these alternate colored highlights. Blue highlights seem to be a very popular highlight color across various art mediums, but is most commonly found in comic book art. It's most often used to highlight black suits or black hair. A close second is using purple to highlight black, which is again found mostly in comic book art and is reserved almost exclusively for characters' black suits and is used much more sparingly than blue. Other colors are seldomly used to highlight black, and are usually used to reflect the character's environment rather than as an undertone for the black element it's highlighting. I used a series of blue-grays when painting the Black Panther for the Marvel Zombies board game. I really like how these two miniatures turned out, but today I want to try something a little different. I'm painting Shoggoth for Cthulhu Death May Die, and I want something a little more eerie than the typical blue highlight found so commonly in comic book art. I'm choosing a series of purples, topped off with a little pink to accent the features of this black monstrosity. After using some Vallejo plastic putty to fill in some heinous gaps in this model, I make the only logical decision and begin by priming the entire model with a flat black primer. Then I dry brush the entire model with Dark Plum Pro Acryl. I'm covering well over 50% of the miniature with this color. I never leave flat black primer as an exposed color on a finished miniature. If I were using traditional layering for this model, I would cover the primer with a black acrylic paint before continuing. However, I'm going to address the exposed black primer a little later in the process. I follow the Dark Plum Pro Acryl with a dry brush layer of Purple by Vallejo. This is a much lighter dry brush that just highlights the raised surfaces of the miniature. As these purple highlights begin to take shape over the miniature, you may begin to wonder if we're even painting a black creature at this point. We are. And now I'm adding salmon rose to the purple paint to begin painting some more refined highlights. There is no more dry brushing, and these highlights will be placed with more control. I'm highlighting within the established area of the previous purple layer. The skin of this creature is fairly well textured, so I'm able to use the side of my brush to apply the paint to many of the raised bits at once, which saves a bunch of time over placing each highlight individually. For the final highlight on the black flesh, I'm using pure salmon rose paint. I'm using a series of short strokes and stippling to get these final highlights into place. Unfortunately, all of these highlights are placed individually without any cheating technique, but there is such a small area to cover relative to the previous layers that it's accomplished in no time. Before I wrap up the black skin, I'm going to paint what can best be described as the inside of this creature's mouth. I'm going to use just a couple of coats of red and pink paint for this. Beginning with burnt red, I apply a single coat of paint over the entirety of the mouth, focusing mostly on covering the protruding bits. I'm going to hit the inside of the mouth with a heavy wash, so getting the burnt red into all of the recesses isn't that important. I then drag a mix of burnt red and salmon rose over all of the little suction tubes as an initial highlight. Next, I use pure salmon rose to edge highlight the upper rim of several of the mouth tubes. Even though this is probably the character's mouth, I'm considering this the backside of the miniature, so I plan to spend significantly less time here. And now it's oil wash time. I'm reusing the black oil wash that I made when I painted the Black Panther miniatures. I feel that this oil wash that I used on Black Panther is a little too thin for this application here, so I'm thickening it up a bit by adding more ivory black oil paint to the glass vial and giving it a good shake. I'm probably looking at about 10 parts mineral spirits to 1 part oil paint for this wash. The ease with which an oil wash flows over a miniature like this is so satisfying. The oil wash serves two purposes. First, it greatly desaturates the bright purple highlights, bringing the model back to a more black appearance. It also addresses the exposed, flat black primer that is still present after the application of the violet layers. This not only saves us time by not having to paint the entire model with a black acrylic paint early on, but it also allows us to be incredibly free with our purple highlights, knowing that we're going to knock the crap out of them with this black wash. The brush is cleaned simply with a little mineral spirits and a paper towel. After letting the oil wash sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, I begin removing the wash with a very floppy makeup sponge. I use a floppy sponge because I want to be sure to not add excessive pressure when removing the oil wash, as this could harm the acrylic paint layer underneath. After removing the bulk of the wash, I switch to a small makeup applicator for the hard to reach places. If I feel that I need to remove more wash to expose a little more of the purple highlights, I dampen the applicator with a little mineral spirits to help with the removal process. For the gaping maw, I'm going to mix it up a little bit and create a dark violet Newsh Wash that is almost identical in color to the dark violet oil washes that I've used on so many of my Cthulhu Death May Die miniatures. I whip up this mix using 6 drops of Liquitex Muted Violet acrylic ink, 1 drop of black ink, and 28 drops of Newsh. So that's a 4-to-1 mix of Newsh to acrylic ink. I'm very surprised by how this high level of Newsh doesn't diminish the dark hues of the inks. This ratio is the correct mix to allow Newsh to work as intended. The more Newsh present relative to acrylic paint, the longer the drying time will be. Newsh is advertised as a weathering medium, which means that it goes on thick and is designed to have the excess wash removed with a sponge or Q-tip. The extended drying time provided by the Newsh is important because once the Newsh is dry, it's designed to not reactivate. That means that once it's dry, it's dry. It's not coming off without damaging the acrylic paint underneath. Newsh Wash mixed in a 4-to-1 ratio like this should give you about 15 to 20 minutes of working time. Like an oil wash, the removal process should be gentle. Of course, I'm using 2 types of wash, the oil wash and the Newsh Wash, for demonstration purposes only. It's much more efficient and sane to choose the style of wash that works best for you and apply that over the entirety of the model. For example, if you're more comfortable with the Newsh product, then mix 5 drops of black acrylic ink with 20 drops of Newsh and work that over the black areas of this miniature. The result should be very similar. Now that we're all done with the black speed painting and we've painted the inside of the mouth, all that's left to do is paint this creature's eyes. These eyes are incredibly simple to paint. I choose Crimson Red Pro Acryl specifically because of its gloss finish, and I base coat the entire orb of each eye. Then I use Pyrrole Red Pro Acryl to accent each orb. I draw a fat crescent shape in the lower part of the eye where light would leave the eye, and I draw a large circle in the upper portion of the eye where light would enter. I'm not covering all of the crimson red, but I am making these shapes large enough that I can easily highlight them with the next color. Finally, I use Vallejo Salmon Rose to paint thin highlights within the Pyrrole Red shapes. This is designed to make the eyes look shiny and add some life to the model. And that wraps up painting the Shoggoth for Cthulhu Death May Die. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to join our growing community of painters.